Welcome back, fellow theater lovers, to another episode of the Box Seat Babes podcast. Today we're discussing the North American tour of The Wiz, which has arrived at the Fisher Theater as the final show to this season of Broadway in Detroit. But before we jump into the story and characters within this show, please like, follow, and subscribe to us, Box Seat Babes, on all social media platforms at Box Seat Babes. Spoiler warning, we will be talking in depth about what you can expect from The Wiz. So if you don't want to be spoiled, please pause this video and return to the Land of Oz when you have seen the show. However, if you're still with us, let's ease on down the road and explore the vibrant story and characters of The Wiz. RJ, it's always great to see you. It feels like it's been a while since we recorded.
Probably because it has.
It has been a while. We've been busy. We've been stockpiling episodes for people that are coming out. We're so excited for them to see it, but it's been a while since we've gotten together to talk about a show. So I do want to jump right into this one and start with, what is your experience with The Wiz? Have you seen this before? Do you have a history with it?
The show itself, no. Like most, I think I saw the VHS movie version when I was a young child. And then more recently, when they did the live TV version, I watched the recording of that, a little while after it came out. But even that was longer ago than I would have imagined.
It was like a decade ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's not as new as it feels in my brain.
As we know, or at least those who were at the show know, that I don't have an extensive history with The Wiz at all. When we went to go see MJ the musical, and we had a friend there and we were talking about it, she was like, "You've seen The Wiz, right?" And my answer was no, I hadn't. And I think she maybe disowned me in that moment just a little bit, because I hadn't seen the movie. And I actually did not watch the movie until I was preparing for the interviews as we were getting closer to the show to really understand what makes this show special. And I was actually blown away at how great The Wiz. I mean, I shouldn't be surprised that it's great, but like, I don't know where it was on my radar that I never once stopped to watch it. And I missed the live one that was on NBC. Somewhere along the lines, I just had missed The Wiz. So it's interesting that we kind of have two different perspectives here. You kind of have a little bit more of that, you carbon dated yourself with the VHS. You like to do this a lot and make us feel old when we talk about these things.
I mean, we're not fooling anyone, let's be real.
When we get to Phantom of the Opera in a few months, can you mention the DVD instead, not the VHS player?
Which, honestly, I don't think I saw. I did think I saw it on DVD.
As I say, I think it came out during the DVD age. I don't think it was on VHS. So I'm making sure that I know come Beauty and the Beast, you're going to pull out that VHS again, and I'm going to feel like my bones are cracking. So
maybe.
So it sounds like you did know a little bit what to expect when you went into the show. You kind of understood the story of The Wiz, which is just honestly a retelling of The Wizard of Oz, which I'm sure you also grew up on that one because that's a classic, correct?
Yes.
Okay, good. Just had to make sure. If you had missed The Wizard of Oz, we would have a different conversation here. But what is your initial impression of kind of the story and kind of what we saw last night? What's your initial impression of The Wiz?
Every retelling, even of The Wiz, seems to be different. So when we talk about the movie, then we talk about the live version, and then the stage version, all of them to me, and maybe my memory is just poor, which sometimes it is, but all of them seemed to be different. Obviously modern, but modern in different ways. Which kind of just tells me that the director and whoever was writing the book for the show had a different vision of what they wanted it to be or how they wanted it to translate, maybe to be more exciting on a live stage. But the differences are interesting because even though, I know it's revival, usually you see things remaining pretty tight to what they used to be. And obviously I didn't see the original cast, so I don't know. Maybe it is exactly the same, but it just felt different than the movie and the the live version.
I was gonna say that I agree with you. Having watched the movie, there were certain beats I was like expecting, and it's quite different. And I think one of the stark differences is right there at the beginning when we meet Dorothy. She's a teenager, but in the movie, Diana Ross is like she's an adult with her own life, like a young adult, but much more adultish than the world of Dorothy and the Wiz that we saw on the stage, which I think really just sets the tone for this is a very different take on it. This is a little more of a mixture of the Wiz with the Wizard of Oz, but also trying to find its own identity, which is probably great for the show because you don't want to tell the same story over and over again. But do wonder if that sometimes alienates people who are expecting like a Diana Ross retelling of that film, or they're expecting the live that they saw on NBC, and this is doesn't have a personality of its own.
Yeah, and part of me, I mean, again, I don't know because I haven't followed this tour particularly close, or even when it was in New York. But I think we're attributing a lot of that to the fact that um, the actress playing Dorothy is a little bit shorter, a little bit smaller, looks more, you could say, I guess, immature than Diana Ross did as, a young adult. I don't know. It's hard to say if that's a choice of the show or if that's just who they currently have cast in the role. Like, I would be interested to see, based on a little bit more research, if that was the case. Um, but based on the way the behaviors of the actors and actresses throughout the rest of the show, I would imagine that they are intentionally having the younger Dorothy.
It felt very much like because it felt like protective older siblings with a younger sister for a lot of the show as we kind of journey through Oz, and so I do feel like that was very much an intentional. I think there's some choices, and as we get into some of those choices, there was a lot of intentionality behind some of those choices. I'm pretty sure. But I know when I was talking with both Amitria Fanay and D. Jerome, they were saying that like this was trying to put its own mark, its own legacy on the history of the Wiz, because the Wiz has been around for 50 years. It's we're having a 50th anniversary. They brought it back to Broadway specifically because of that anniversary, but to be able to kind of tell the story and bring the story to cities around the North America. And you could tell where there was clearly some choices, like when we came to some of the dances, and there was like, oh, we're calling to now, like we're calling back to modern age. They brought Dorothy, her real world, to the modern age, and so there was definitely a lot of intentionality to some of these choices. Be it whether people are going to like it or not, that's a different story. But you did kind of see that reflected throughout the Wiz. We're taking this from the 70s to the 2020s. So with the story, we have Dorothy, obviously goes to Oz, kind of gets trapped in this world of magic, uh, and meets some friends along the way. What about this story, or just like the Wizard of Oz story at all? What kind of like resonates with you with this journey for Dorothy?
What resonate? I mean, it's that coming of age story, right?
Sure,
Like you were kind of opening. It reminds me a lot of Disney. We're opening the story with a trauma, right?
truly.
Talking about in the Wiz specifically, her parents or mom passing away, and now being housed with her aunt, and then having to, at the end of the day, go through hardship, whether that's socially, financially, mentally, um, and overcome that hardship by finding some type of, so word I'm looking for, strength within yourself. Um, and that message to me was very clear. I mean, throughout the entire thing, from the opening scene to the final scene. Obviously, it's kind of spelt out in the final scene, but um, I think that the same thing goes for when we talk about every iteration of the Wiz, also the Wizard of Oz. Um,
I mean, Wicked,
I
like
mean,
it's all there.
yeah, yeah. You have this iteration of home. As we know, this show literally ends on the song "Home," just to really full circle. But yeah, I think everyone can relate to that in some way, shape, or form.
I mean, absolutely. I think that there's so many great messages in here. And when I was talking with Amitria, she had like like a theme that stuck out to her for every single character. And I never crossed my mind when thinking about like the Wizard of Oz that like there's a value in every character brings a value to the story, and all of them are reflective of Dorothy's journey of like having a heart. She cares about her parents, you know, having the brains to figure out what to do. Like there's having the courage to continue on a journey when you're in a land by yourself. Like there is a lot of themes that do stand out about Dorothy's journey. Um, that does make this show so timeless, whether it's the Wizard of Oz or it's the Wiz or it is Wicked. I mean, we are kind of living in the Oz state right now. There's a lot of Oz stuff going around. But truthfully, this is timeless for a reason, and that's because these messages speak to every age, every stage, whatever person is going through. There's something that we can pull apart and take away and use it to reflect upon our lives and reflect upon the lives of those around us. And you know, one that really stuck out to me was kind of this idea of community, which you saw a lot with the Tin Man and the Lion, where they're just the Tin Man wants to find his heart because he's missing his family, and that's his community, and he's feeling lost without that. And the Lion needs to find the courage to find his family who have been taken away from him. So this idea of like finding your family and finding the people that make you feel alive um, jumped out at me and really spoke to me. And I thought that like this is the one that like I'm taking away of like we always need to strive to make our family, make our community, and make it a better place. Um, so that was kind of what I took away from that.
Yep,
With
doesn't shock me at all.
no, not at all, not even a little bit.
Nope.
um, so this show though also does something interesting too because not only does it modernize it, but it does show the story that we all know through a different cultural lens, kind of infusing it with, you know, R&B, soul. You know, the movie itself is a very like urban landscape. This one did a little more. Did you get the vibes of like New Orleans kind of?
Yeah, when the scrim went up for that, transition post tornado, I fully was expecting a cityscape.
Yes.
And immediately I was like, okay, are we? It was feeling Ozian in a New Orleans, downtown New Orleans. Like I was getting like funeral parade um, vibes. And then as I was watching, I think I don't know if it was that scene or future scenes, in the background, of course, their electronic backgrounds, there was like a machine that was all horns that was playing music, and it felt very New Orleans, like streetscape. I mean, live music. Uh, but yeah, for sure, I was getting like a southern feel.
I was gonna say, like, I didn't go to New Orleans when during Mardi Gras, but when I went down there, like that identity is so infused into the culture down there that you're walking down the street on a Tuesday and you're feeling that energy, and you're having people play live music, and you're seeing um, the vibrance of what life is. And what I love about that is that taking that parallel, you know, because um, New Orleans has been through a lot. You know, it's been through destruction and rebuilding, and you know, the hurricane. What was that? Back in 2008, maybe even earlier than that. Just wreaked havoc. But they are such a resilient people, and so to see that play out with what is also the Ozians, you know, I guess those are technically in that scene they would be the Munchkins, though they don't call them the Munchkins, you know. But like seeing that, like they are celebrating the end of like a dictatorish ruler, like they are resilient and they are coming back. And um so I love that they were able to pull that parallel because I think that it gave for people in our society today a better parallel to understand, especially younger generations. I feel like they're going to see that and they're going to be like, oh, you know, us, I guess I'm calling us young. um but like we see that and we can make that parallel being like, oh, we've watched the people come together in that community, but also just not be torn apart by something that is bigger than them. And so I loved that they were able to change that parallel and do that. But I was expecting, like you said, the urban cityscape. Like I was prepared for it to be the urban cityscape as that showed up.
Yeah, and the more it went on, I mean, both that scene and then when we did kind of transition more to the Emerald City, it did, like we talk about Wicked, it did the costuming, which we'll talk about more later, but just the whole thing was giving me Wicked vibes, like the same, the vibrance, the color, the um, just everything about it, which I think speaks to both items, because I think Wicked probably did steal some of their ideas from, and I think they would even say like we were inspired from things like The Wiz and The Wizard of Oz. So I think there was just proof that yeah, they truly did go back and kind of do some recon, and um, from the costumes to the lighting to the stage itself, was giving yeah some funky color.
Some funky color. Which again, in part two, if you guys are listen to part two, we're gonna break down the costumes, the sets, all the interpretive dancing, because there was quite a bit of interpretive dancing too. I feel like the show was a lot of technical heaviness, and like the story itself is something that we all recognize, you know. And so when we're talking about it, it's easy to just we're kind of glossing over some of these things. Um, because a lot of the changes happened with what we were seeing, not the story itself. If that makes sense. Does that make sense? Okay. So with the characters then, is there any character story or just performance that really stood out to you um comparatively to maybe some of the others on stage?
I mean, Dorothy killed it. Um, Her vocal control and just everything vocally was absolutely absurdly good. Like it was just probably one of the best vocal performances I've heard all year. Um,
I was gonna say there was definitely some songs that she did that reminded me of Heart of Stone from Six, where I was like, oh, you
yes,
have that same like
yes,
tonality as an actress.
yeah, yeah. She gives. I mean, even in riffs, there was so many runs. Not to get too vocally like heavy, but so many. Uh, we'd call it like ornamentations that were done in all of the songs, really, but specifically in her solos. I was like, that is a brutal. Like, I did not remember or realize how much work this actress has to do in this show. It's a lot. Um, and it is, I would say, equivalent to something like Six, maybe even heavier, because in Six, they each have a song, right?
Sure,
And then they are in the back, quote unquote, background vocals for the rest of most of the
for
show.
sure,
This, she is like every other song she's leading, and then she has got like three or four powerhouse ballads, which is absurd. Um, for sure had chills. I think from even the opening notes to the closing notes, she killed it. But let's be real, they were all absurdly talented. Um, I think Glinda grew on me um, at the beginning. We don't see her a lot in the beginning for like literally a second,
sure.
but then I did remember that the second to last song. I'm blanking on the title right now, but it's one of my favorites. Um, and she blew the roof off with that one too. So, but yeah, they're all like I would die to have those the vocal cords.
Absolutely. I think that Dana Simone, who played Dorothy, deserves a huge shout out for her performance in this. Even despite maybe what we think may have been some sound difficulties, she still gave a performance. And as they grow throughout the show, and I think that this is something that's interesting too. It's like, was it a sound issue? Was it a casting choice? Because she's very almost meek and small with her vocal range and her songs at the beginning. Like she's very quiet and petite. And then by the end, when she's kind of reached this end journey and she's discovered herself, she's going home, she is just belting these songs that are just crazy. And again, don't want to get too vocally. We are going to talk about that in the next episode. But like, I think that her journey too throughout the show was from small child to woman of her own right. And that was kind of a very beautiful journey. And it's reflective in how she handles herself, how she presents herself, but also how she hits those notes. Um, you said Glinda. Glinda's great. Sure, Scheherazade is fantastic. But I was loving Kyla Jade as Auntie M and Eveline. Like the first off, this idea of having the person play Eveline that's Auntie M is such an interesting parallel because like, and I know it's done in multiple productions of this. It's not special to this one, but having the person that is there to protect you when you've lost everything be the person who's trying to destroy you in Oz. Um, while it probably isn't meant to be a parallel, it's probably just a saving on budget. I think it's just such a great. To me, it was like the people that love you can also destroy you if you don't fill them with love, kind of thing, Um, so absolutely 1,000%, Kyla Jade was top tier for me of the show. Loved her performance. She was hilarious. She was great. I love her. But unfortunately, you know what's coming because you heard about it all night from both me and the guests that we brought. But D. Jerome as Tin Man. Whew, whew, that was a great performance. Great performance. 10 out of 10. No notes.
I mean, I can't argue. I also I had a friend not sitting with us, but who also, when we were talking and about the performance, even at intermission, he was her standout performer. She said, "Tin Man, that's where it's at." And then I turned to you guys, and you said the same thing. So, I mean, obviously, absurdly talented. The dancing, I do think it helps that he is playing a role that like is supposed to be pulling on your heartstrings, right?
Sure.
Like, I don't know where my family is. I'm heartless. I need to find them. You know what I mean? Like, comparatively to like, I don't have a brain, or I don't have,
Sure.
not that those aren't like serious, um, but yes, I did see that one coming.
But also, I do want to make a few notes here that Dorothy, this was her debut. So like insanely talented straight off the gate. When I spoke with D. Jerome, he was mentioning that he had previously been in MJ the Musical. He had been in Hamilton, but mostly in dancing parts. This is his first time having a significant role in a singing role at that. And so sometimes you're kind of sitting there and you're just like, I wonder what it's going to be like because maybe you're nervous, maybe you're not. That he was hitting notes that were just looked. He made him look so easy on stage. When I was like, that note is ridiculously hard for the length or the note or the. It just sounded so pristine. You weren't wavering, and I was like, this is somebody who has immense talent and is finally getting to showcase that on stage. So like that itself is a brilliance of it as well. Um,
Yeah, and I mean, how often do we run into things? I think of the same thing right when an understudy comes on,
Mhm.
like someone who you literally may never hear sing or see dance that much. They're just kind of in the background, and then all of a sudden they are front and center, and they're equally as talented as the next. And it's absurd because these people are just. I mean, as we know, casting is so hard,
Sure.
and it really is like a director discretion, right? I mean, Broadway level, they have casting boards and they have casting directors specifically, but you, I can't even imagine being in this profession because it is so the talent runs so deep, and this is just proof of that.
Truly, like, because I have the tour page pulled up, and I'm looking through there. I was like, Elijah Lewis killed it as Scarecrow. Cal Mitchell killed it as Lion. Of course, Alan Mingo Jr. as the Wiz was a standout for the entire crowd. They loved him. There wasn't a single person here that was strong, and there's a huge cast. The ensemble is huge. There's lots of people, lots of different parts moving here, and there's just the same amount of talent that whoever casts the show deserves a raise. It should cast every show from here on out because they did a fantastic job of finding true talent to represent the Wiz on stage. I am interested though because having spoke with Ametria Finet, who was Ada Pearl, which Ada Pearl, for those who haven't seen the show, Ada Pearl is kind of the witch that takes Glinda's spot in like welcoming um, Dorothy to Oz, and then she kind of shows up at the end. Which she's fantastic. She has a wonderful voice, but she's the understudy for Eveline. And in my head, I was thinking, I was like, is Eveline that different if she takes over, or is she able to like code switch that much when it comes to the role and the singing? And so that also has to factor into when you're making these decisions as casting as well. Is kind of what I'm getting at, and like the fact that you're thinking about those things. Sweet little Ada Pearl can turn into boisterous Eveline is it doesn't cross my mind as a possibility, but clearly she could do it.
Yeah, yeah, and I think even in a couple of the ensemble strong pieces, I was just kind of looking at the ensemble, um, and there were some women who were distinctively shorter than others, and it literally immediately in the back of my mind, I was like, okay, there's no way that that is not an understudy for Dorothy. You know what I mean? Like, there's intention behind like the tracks that every potential understudy or standby could run. And as we know, like you were saying, if you bump Ada Pearl to Eveline, that then bumps someone into Ada Pearl, that then bumps someone into on like wherever they're coming from. So the number of tracks, for those of you who don't know what tracks is, it's kind of just like a set of roles that you might essentially play at one time, most often in ensemble roles. Um, but like, let's say I'm in an ensemble track one or whatever the name is, and now I'm in the Eveline track, which would mean that I'm playing Antam and Eveline, right? So yeah, it's insane to think that all of these things have to be thought through, and probably like even in the audition, you're probably singing through all of those things because you want to make sure that they can do it.
For sure.
So it's intense.
And like this is something that like I understand now why community theaters don't have understudies because you would have to consider all of that. Like, because in my head, like I go back to when you were in Sweeney Todd, and I was like, well, what happens if someone's sick? Like, what happens if someone can't make it? And in my head, there's really no one to cover your part. But like, there's a lot of like you actually have to have like a full time job to really think about like who, if in a pinch, who could replace RJ as the Beetle. And this one, like when you said, everybody kind of has a backup role on this. When you're going down the list, everyone kind of has like an understudy for this character, and then this person's the understudy for that character. It's kind of like that shuffleboard as it goes through.
Yeah, yeah, and obviously lower level. I mean, even professional, quote unquote, or amateur professional theater probably don't have too many understudies, or they have like completely unassociated folks as understudies. So they might just be hiring someone to be on book, in case of something being needed. But community level, yeah, you're kind of sunk. That's usually when shows get canceled or something, somebody's on stage, on book, or something like that.
For sure, for sure. Before we wrap this up, though, I just kind of wanted to get an impression of what you thought of the chemistry, specifically of our main four, because I do think that there was a wonderful chemistry. As they were they felt very much like a family. They felt very much like friends. I loved every time they did Ease on Down the Road and they like linked their arms together. What did you think of that chemistry of the cast?
Yeah, I would say it seemed good. I'm interested. I don't know what number stop this is for them together. But even because obviously throughout the whole show we know they're acting, right? And when I think of chemistry, I think like I'm talking like deep chemistry, like off stage almost chemistry, because that truly, we have seen where if your offstage chemistry is good, your onstage chemistry is three times as good. And so, and it feels more authentic. It doesn't feel like acting. Um, I often, again, I think of Wicked, and the women that play the two leads often are very, very good friends or become extremely good friends in real life because they're playing good friends. Um, and I will say at the closing number or even the curtain call number is when it became most apparent to me that I do think that the chemistry was very tight amongst the few of them. Of course, you might have someone that you resonate more closely with, especially when there's four of you. Because also I'm not sure on like their ages, and that I'm sure could play a role as well. But yeah, you couldn't tell. They were very in it to win it, so to speak.
I don't. I was just trying to look it up real quick without shaking my game boxes too much and making the camera flicker. But I do think we're early into the tour. I think like we're not the first stop, but we're early into it. Um, like within the past couple months. So like it feels like the chemistry either was there or it was or it's just they've latched onto each other very quickly, which is understandable. This is a very emotional show that like how could you not just latch onto each other? Which again, correct me if I'm wrong. That's true with almost any show that you're doing together, be it community, pro professional. Like you become a family very quickly because you're kind of trauma bonded in this experience together.
Correct. I mean, we see the end result, right? We see the performances, but on the back end, even during performance days and weeks, like they're still going through rehearsals. They're still meeting with each other all of the time. They're doing PR together. Some of them are typically living together, depending on, if it's an equity or non-equity show. It's basically like college, and these are your roommates. They're your, suite mates. They live on your floor, and anyone who's lived on campus knows, like, even if you're not trying to get to know somebody in that space, you probably do. You know them pretty well, because that's just the nature of the beast. And truly, when you're touring, that is, these people become your family. They become very tight.
Having done a lot of interviews for these shows, they're getting up at usually about 10 o'clock our time, 9 o'clock wherever they're at usually, to do interviews via the computer, get ready for events. Then they're going to the events, and then they even said after shows, there's always somebody going out, and so learning to make the choice between like, am I going out with these people, and you want to because the idea of that community, which kind of ties us all together, is so strong, and you don't want to feel alone on the road, and so you do tend to just push your boundaries a little bit, and you're with these people, and you do tend to just become a family in the end. So with that, we are running out of time, but look out for part 2 of our Wiz discussion. We'll be continuing to explore the staging, music, and costumes of the wonderful world of Oz, as well as giving our final verdict. Thank you again for joining us here in our box seats. Till next curtain call.